The legal system is still, I feel like, still very far behind. They have recognized coercive control. Oh boy, back in 1992, I saw an ad in the newspaper for the women's shelter, and I'm like, I didn't even know we had a women's shelter. So I had just come home from university. I had finished a degree in criminology and really did not know what was next. Like, you could have gone into RCMP, like those were the options. But in the end, when I saw the ad and I had the interview, I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure this is the work for me. And then it was. I started the crisis line. Everybody was trained for the crisis line at that point. So I started casual, got a part-time position relatively quickly, and then it was just amazing luck. It was our shelter and another shelter that got funding to pilot a kids program. It wasn't full-time, it was 20 hours a week, but we had way more kids than we had women. So having a program for the kids was really, really important. And it was amazing to be able to build that the way we felt it would work best. And so that was very exciting times. I've been really lucky. I was at the organization in direct service in the kids program for 5 years, and then I left, and I was away for 7 years. And in that time, I worked for another organization that had incredible leadership. And in that time, I was able to develop some leadership skills that I wouldn't have had if I had stayed. And when I got back as the executive director, I realized that lots of things had changed. Not only I had changed, but lots of things in that environment had changed. And so my challenges that I was facing now were different and larger than I had expected. You know, when you're doing direct service, there's the level of intrinsic value in the work is in your face every single day, every minute, right? So in the job I left, working with kids, that's super rewarding anyway, right? And so that level of engagement with the kids and their moms was awesome. When I came back, I was not so much doing that work, I was managing the staff. It took me a while to make that shift to realize that that's all an extension of me, like the staffing and how I want people to be received on the crisis line and how I want their experience to be when they come through our doors at the shelter. That's an extension of me and how I would do it. So I needed to learn how to bring that message to the staff and bring that value to the staff, which was new for me. And that was hard, actually. I find that's still hard, even today. I've been at the shelter 24 years. I would say that some of the things that if I had influence or more influence that I would have liked to see change, the legal system is still, I feel like, still very far behind. They have recognized coercive control, and so that's a huge step forward, understanding that abuse isn't just physical. We're not waiting for somebody to be choked or punched, but recognizing that that coercive control is such a key piece. That's what it will enable a person that's choosing abuse and violence to further abuse their partner or their spouse. So I think I would like to see more change that way. I would say probably most folks aren't probably aware that Genesis House was sort of the foundation for the Winkler Family Resource Center. We were doing that programming, but if you were new in a community, who on earth would think, let's go to the women's shelter for some parenting support? Nobody would think of that, but there was no active group doing that. So we knew that there was a small bit of funding for that, and we were seeing families that needed parenting support. So we would use the funds with the moms and kids we had in shelter. But we recognized that if we could collaborate in community and partner with other organizations, whether it was Central Station, Family Resource in other communities, the rec department, and then we would provide the programming, but didn't have our logo and stuff splashed all over it. But from there, definitely a recognition, and actually that goes way back to my early days at the shelter in the kids program. Even then, dreaming about what it would be like if we could support families to be healthy. And that was sort of in my mind. So when the opportunity presented itself years later as a manager or the director of the shelter, it wasn't a hard call for me to say, yeah, let's jump in on this and let's see how we can grow this. We frequently get asked, what about the men? And while the shelter totally supports and recognizes that men need additional support to change the patterns they have created for themselves, the shelter isn't able to provide that service, but we would make referrals. If men call our crisis line, we make referrals for them to find the support they need. Genesis House is really fortunate to have the amount of community support that we have. We get support from churches, from regular community members, kids' classrooms, you name it, from the RMs, the cities, the municipalities. It's just the amount of support we get is humbling. And we pass that on to the families that we serve. And I'm not sure that Genesis House would still exist, actually, without that level of support that we've received from community.